Good morning, B-Sides. Oh, all right. I usually have to see the audience for the clapping, so I don't know you. That's great. That's cool. So I'm Bryson. Really, it's an honor to be here. I think that B-Sides is a lot of what's right in the world in information security because it's conferences at the community level. It's conferences where it's an opportunity for people who really have a passion to be here. I mean, it's Saturday and you're here, right? You chose to be here. And the opportunity that's out there with the talks, the workshops, the CTF, this is your chance to learn. This is your chance to ask questions. And there's a lot of also really brilliant attendees. I'll just point out to Jeff, for example, not Mark, who really bring a lot to the table. So this is called Hack the Planet. Who is expecting something about blockchain? Get out. Always a lieutenant. Why is that? Why is it? Why is always a lieutenant? This is the movie Hack the Planet. Which movie? Hackers. Who's seen Hackers? Hack the Planet. All right, so where we got that name from is I'm the co-founder of the ICS Village, which is a nonprofit that does industrial control system security and awareness. And at DEF CON, we held an official capture the flag that we called Hack the Planet. And Hack the Planet was the slice of a smart city. So we had power generation, transmission, chemical and water treatment plant. We had, part of it is actually with the Grimm exhibit where we had an integrated smart house. And all of these things were connected together, which gave on the awareness side, the opportunity to see the upstream and downstream effects of what would happen in that kind of environment with different impacts. From the hacker side, it was the opportunity to make things happen at the up and downstream effect of those things happening. The reason I chose that for this talk is what I'm going to be going through is discussing how ubiquitous computing is in fact enabling us to not just hack the planet like zero cool, but in fact to do so in a way that impacts our lives. This is the challenge that we have with computing is until recently, computing was more of an abstract thing, right? Oh, the information economy and data. All right, that's, you know, I feel bad for Brian Krebs when his website gets hacked, but it doesn't affect me, it doesn't change my life. But as computing has become ubiquitous and has started to become more enmeshed in our lives, there's now a physical impact on what it can do to us. And so that's where I came up with the name Hack the Planet. Yeah, we didn't test this part. It doesn't work. You know. There's always a plan B. Oh, yeah, by the way, so I got swag to give out. So former Army officer, I like being interactive. And I also do that in the way that you can volunteer or I can volunteer you. But I do have some carrots. So you're, you know, threatened and cajoled both ways, right? So we're going to talk through the threat landscape, different attack types. Then we're going to do an attack demonstration. Now, how many talks have you seen where somebody goes, ooh, look at this 0 day, look what I've done to this thing? Right? Have we seen that talk before? Yes. Oh, yeah, good, we're learning. Yes. And at the end of it, what have we accomplished? Wait, you mean it's still going to be exploited? There's going to be yet another computer that's going to be exploited again and again and again? Except by us this time. What are you building? I believe more in the concept, and pun intended, that it's better to feed a person a fish. I mean, teach a person a, you know what I mean. The point is, this is not yet another, here's an exploit, look what it can do, but more like this is what is publicly available. These are the common attack types. This is why it matters to us. And this is how you build mass attack campaigns easily to go after thousands of things at a time, and why you will always be able to repeatedly go after 1,000 things at a time. And then this being a security conference, you're supposed to feel really, really bad about that until the very end when we'll talk through some things that we can do to make that better, both at a tactical, technical level and then at a strategic level. Who has IoT? Who here in this room has IoT? If you're not raising your hand, you're wrong. Yeah, so why does everybody have it?
Everybody's got
Wait,
it.
no, talking to the mics.
It's everywhere. I mean, you can't avoid it.
But why? Why is it everywhere?
Everybody's got a phone.
Everyone's got a phone.
Everybody's got a little Raspberry Pi, or about half people have Raspberry Pi, or you've got some kind of camera. You've got video camera somewhere, or you've got computer. So, Fire Stick. Yeah.
Fire Stick, Chromecast, fridge. Internet of Things, right? We have all of these devices. They are now one with us. I would submit that the future of our identities is going to be the ecosystem of computers and devices that are around us rather than our social security number, our name, and our date of birth. Think about that. That ecosystem will be a much better indicator of who you are because of your natural behaviors, both physically, how you interact with things, as well as behaviorally with what you do with those devices. Great example of that would be during World War II. One of the ways that they were able to discern, without decrypting the communications of the Germans, they could pick up the particular fingerprint of operators sending signals and communications because there was a natural rhythm to how each of them did it. And as a result, you could pick up who was transmitting, you could figure out what unit that was, and then you could triangulate those units to determine what was happening. You didn't even have to decrypt the message. We physically have certain ways that we do things, and I would argue that that's going to be a future of our identity. So everyone has these, which means everybody in this room theoretically cares because this affects you. So we've got the what's in it for me to start. Everybody has IoT. Now that's consumer IoT, but where else do we see IoT? Industrial. So what is industrial IoT? You get to talk to them.
Energy,
Right here.
power plants.
I know it's awkward. It's on purpose.
Energy, power plants.
Do you want me to make eye contact while I do it?
That's all I got.
No, it's all good. That's people hacking. Who else wants to try? What, PLCs?
A question about PLCs? Or
You can go with what you want. The spotlight is on you right now.
Okay.
You feel it? It's hot.
The industrial
It's warm.
IoT is basically sensors and devices that communicate via Bluetooth, via wireless, to a centralized control system.
Okay, so we're starting to see sensors in different environments, right? Medical devices. Who said medical devices? High five. There you go. I'll get to you in the back of the room. Don't think you're safe. I got to work my way up, and the fact that I'm like least to here with advancing my slides does give you an advantage, but you're not out of it. Okay, so to understand, we have to start with why. Why are we here? And there's two reasons for why. One, of course, is the fact that we have a exponentially different form factor in computing than we did years ago. Everyone has, I think, seen the metaphor of you have more power in your phone than NASA had in it for the entire program in the 1960s. So, and yes, we did put somebody on the moon, in case anybody's still a doubter on that. So cost, these things got a lot cheaper. Form factor, they got a lot smaller. Energy consumption, both through a combination of miniaturization of power generation or batteries, as well as their ability to be more efficient with the use of it. And then, of course, the ability for radio frequency, so the ability to talk remotely in a lot easier way, which means this is why we have ubiquitous computing, because now it is very easy to put computers everywhere. And that's the way that I like to simplify when I think of Internet of Things is, instead of listing specific devices, just consider that it is computing capacity that I can put anywhere. Storage doesn't matter as much. It's the computing capacity. Here's the other why. The power grid. What is the most significant shift in the power grid in the last couple of decades? Somebody in the back said something. I was waiting for it.
Smart meters.
Smart meters. Why do we have smart meters?
So they don't have to pay people to walk out to your property to see how much you've used.
Okay, so that made it easier for me to track power consumption, but what was the big shift that really changes how the power grid works? What? Demand pricing. Well, demand pricing ties to smart meters where I'm a lot smarter about understanding exactly what's happening in a dynamic way. Huge shift. Interconnection, transmission, deregulation.
Renewable energy.
Who said renewable energy? Where are you? There you are. The pauses make it more fun too. You right? No. Oh.
There's microphones on all the desks.
Okay, so why? Why power, renewable power?
So that you can push power into the system and the actual production and distribution of the power can be adjusted as needed.
Bingo. Power used to be one way. Somebody produced it, they transmitted it, we consumed. Unidirectional. Because of things like renewable energy, the power grid is now exponentially more complex because it is now bidirectional. We can no longer presume that I, as a resident, am just going to consume power. I can also generate power. Now that ties into a lot of the things where we're talking about deregulation, we're talking about why smart meters matter, we're talking about demand pricing. All of those are complex symptoms, but the fundamental change, I'm actually out of breath. Change the physics of the power grid. Because a lot of the question is, why are we introducing all this complex computing into this environment? That's why. We need more computing to be able to handle all the different challenges that come from a fundamental shift in how the power grid works. Unlike what we see in consumer IoT, go back to that. So this is Consumer Electronics Show this year, 2018. I walked the floor with the reporter, and it was a setup. We were shooting fish in the barrel because we would go to each of the latest and greatest IoT booths and have them explain what they did, and then we would ask a simple question. So what about security? You're not here to buy, are you? And then some handler would come over and pull us aside and be like, all right. So this was my favorite. This umbrella, the Shadecraft, not that I'm picking on particularly, but I am, it does everything. It follows the sun, it solar charges, it has a battery built in the base, it talks just about every protocol. It did everything. So the starting question, of course, is what do you think this Shadecraft umbrella costs? The price is right. $3,000. I heard $3,000. Too low. $5,000. Too low. It was a little bit more than $8,000 MSRP. Big seller. So I asked the question, because all these things don't start with technology. These things start with the use case and the demographic. And I'm curious, who's the demographic for an $8,000 umbrella? You know who that is?
Rich people who want to feel good about themselves for protecting the environment.
Rich people who want to feel good about themselves for protecting the environment. The chief operating officer of Shadecraft was kindly on hand to provide me a little bit better use case of that. Because you see, she owns a vineyard. And it's very important that she has 10 of these. That's your demographic. I know, rich people. What's with rich people? This is the challenge in the world, right? What color did I pick? Do I look rich to you? Actually, I don't know what colors they came in. I never even think about that. I didn't think about that. But the summer, whoa, DPG, I'm not upgrading for $25. Okay. So, if it could be internet connected, it was. And the new thing for 2018, if it could be voice enabled, it was. So why I jumped ahead to that from back here with the why. So we have a real reason for why there is a shift in computing in critical infrastructure. In consumer electronics, I feel like it is best summed up by the vice president of LG in 2015 or 2016 when he was unveiling this concept as the new product platform for LG Electronics. And he says, all of our consumer appliances will be internet connected. Including a toaster? Yes. Why? I don't have an answer for that. He hadn't thought that through. This is the release of a major electronics platform, and they're just like, wait a second, we never thought about why. We're going to do it. This is our world. They're what? Catchword? Well, they're doing it a little bit more than a catchword. They're introducing these by the millions and the billions into our environment. You know, I mean, Gartner says lots of interesting and made-up things, including the fact we'll have anywhere from 20 to a kajillion devices in the next X number of years. The point is there's a lot. They're coming in. Everyone in here has one, and there's even more coming in the environment. Critical infrastructure, you have a reason why. Consumer electronics, we're getting there, but we love them. My favorite, of course, because there's a heavy military crowd here, is remember the challenge with the Fitbit? Wow, how about that for an OPSEC failure? Look it up if you haven't seen it. All right, so this is just a quick plug. The lab that I'm going to be demonstrating today, we are going to be pushing this out open source. So the code, the lab, all you got to do is bring your own hardware, and in the comfort of your own home, you can build your own legal on your own stuff demonstration. So that'll be getting pushed out on GitHub. And if it doesn't, the Tommy out at the booth, you can yell at him. All right. So the state of affairs. There are 3 core attack campaigns that we've seen. Distributed denial of service, where we create zombies out of a lot of IoT devices. Ransomware, not as much, but this is, of course, ransomware and cryptojacking are 2 sides of the same coin, where the value of cryptocurrency has now made it worthwhile to steal computational cycles, going back to the definition of IoT as just computation anywhere, to ransomware, which is the challenge of you try to use something and it's locked. Send Bitcoins here. Who thinks Bitcoins are anonymous? Good, they're not. We can find you. We can always find you. But, what, on the hard drive? Oh, there's a few of those. There's some Bitcoin billionaires who can't find their wallets. That's funny. The best security is when you can't get to your own stuff, because then neither can the attacker. So these are the 3 common threads that we've seen up to date. Why do I care who the sponsors are? No, it's the screen right here just flashed up, and it's now going through all the sponsors. It's funny, because I'm coming over here to look at my presentation, and I look at this, and it's like, thanks to these sponsors. Oh, wait, Army Cyber is only a silver sponsor? Okay. All right, Mirai and IOTrooper. These are the 2 kinds of exploitation attacks that we've seen. Mirai would never say never, would not work as well in an enterprise environment. What Mirai did was look and said there are about 10 combinations of user ID and password that are default sent out with each of these devices, and all I have to do is try them, and I'm in. Guess what? That worked millions of times over because it's that easy. How many of you have actually changed the default password on your router? Notice that's not the whole room. Who here can actually tell me with 100% certainty how many IoT devices you actually own? And he's an expert. We don't know. And the manufacturers don't make this any easier. In fact, that's one of the things we're going to show is the constraint to being able to even change the passwords. The other one is much more complex, and this is the Reaper IO True approach, where do we know what an N-day is? O-day is where I find an exploit on a computer that nobody else knows about, so therefore it can't be patched. N-day, it has been publicly released, which means that if everyone has followed proper vulnerability disclosure deadlines, then we have a patch. But having a patch and having it patched are two different things, right? And we see this problem all the time. Why is it so hard to patch things in general? Money? Downtime. Humans. Takes effort. What kind of effort? Intelligent effort. Jeff, I knew you were in the front row for a reason. I told him you were an expert. Oh, sorry. Intelligent. Go.
Intelligent go? What? It takes human effort. It takes downtime.
Yeah, it takes effort. So why does it take effort? I mean, Microsoft just releases a patch. Why can't I just push it?
Because you might break things.
I might break things. Why might I break things?
Because people don't test their patches on the company side, or we don't trust them to.
We tend to build our own things. The operating system is there to do its thing, and then we depend on it for simple applications. And then, of course, we like to pay government contractors ridiculous amounts of money to build things that don't work. And then we have to custom develop. I know, that was probably a bad joke for this crowd. I was like, wait a second. That's my job. It's okay. I joke. We build custom things in our environment, which means we can't just patch things. Now, tie this into IoT, where are they even releasing patches? How do we even find out if they're releasing patches? How do I consume those patches and put them in? I'm probably not building much custom stuff on my IoT, but we have an environment where the life cycle is not even supported to do that. But the next time you ever hear, because this is a really popular thing, don't throw, let's say, McKinsey under the bus. Just patch it. That's what needs to be done in this environment. Why didn't people patch that quickly enough? You have my permission to punch them in the nose. You can say it was me. They know me. This eye chart demonstrates this. Who's heard of stage fright? Who was listening to the keynote this morning? What? Did you just get here? So Dave mentioned stage fright. Stage fright was a weaponized text that I could send to a cell phone and automatically have remote exploitation on that phone. It worked on Android, it worked on Apple. That's most of the phones in the world. That is about the scariest thing that could possibly happen. Yeah, you're all thinking, what kind of pictures do you have on your phone? I know, exactly. You don't want those out there. 9 months after probably the scariest exploit in phones ever, that blue is the only part of the world that actually got patched. Oh dear, oh God, yes. And it can't be any easier to patch your phone. They force it on you. You have to keep saying no. Tie that with the fact that you have to buy a new phone every period of time because they only support it for so long. So a combination of user understanding and acceptance tied to manufacturer support. This is the environment. That's Republic of Korea. That's the worst, by the way. No, not that Korea, the other one. Okay, so the setup here. This is going to be the case study we're going to walk through. We are going to be an average consumer, and we want to put some privacy and protective measures in place, which we're going to get a webcam for. Now, webcam is just essentially, for our purposes, a nominal IoT device. This just sets up the use case. These kinds of devices, this could be a consumer device of any type. This could be an industrial device of any type. The principles are still the same. But in this consumer, why am I doing this? Well, alarm systems are expensive and useless. People want to secure their homes. Cost is a factor. Who's cheap? I already told you I'm not rich. Like, I'm cheap. Again, look. Yeah. Oh, being cheap? And free t-shirts. Convenience. Yeah, it's convenient and it's cheap. And I don't want to pay $100 to pick random alarm company to come in. So of course, we're talking to a military audience, so we're going to make things simple. The funniest part from my view here is the fact the audience, I can feel it. You're like, wait, that's a joke. Is that not a joke? Wait, It's good to feel awkward. We're the good guys, right? Blue. Bad guys are over there. And the internet is in between. Always be oriented. Bad guys can't affect what they can't touch. So they have to get there. So demonstration. We're going to walk through reconnaissance. How do we find our targets? Enumeration. How do I make sure that I know exactly what my target is? Because exploits don't just work across everything. I need something to specifically work, and I want to make sure I'm throwing it at exactly what I think it is. We're going to compromise that device. And then this is the part that's different, where a lot of people don't realize about IoT. We're going to pivot. So I mentioned the Brian Krebs situation earlier. This is the challenge from a consumer perspective. So you exploited my Nest thermostat. Who cares? It is probably the same VLAN, exactly. Yeah, you're jumping ahead. So you popped my Nest thermostat. I'm pretty confident that somebody somewhere else in the world is not trying to exploit my thermostat to play with my temperature. What's that? Exactly. Where's the true monetization in that approach? It's not there. And I, as a consumer, I'm not worried about that. Potentially, there's the creep factor of you getting to my web camera. But, I mean, that's only going to take 10 seconds, and then you'll be off of my web camera. Give it a second. Oh, yeah, all right, I get what you did. So unless, again, I'm Brian Krebs and you're DDoSing my website, I don't care. But you should. We're going to show that. And why? Because that leads us to our next bullet. Steal. Steal things. We're going to show how to steal things. Again, getting on the Nest thermostat, interesting, but by itself has no intrinsic value. Stealing things means I'm stealing something of value. So we want to install a web camera. We're the home consumer. Oh, well, it's running here. It's a great demo. Yeah, that part. That's cool. All right. So I don't know why that's not showing. Oh, I do know. I have to exit out of my PowerPoint. I have to wait an interminable period of time. I have to go over here and do this. There we go. Okay, so this is the end user perspective. We are setting up our webcam. They're kind enough to at least alert us, please change the default. We're now better than about 80% of all manufacturers. So we're going to create a new password. Oh, come on. Still better than most manufacturers. That's sad. This is proof that there's evil in the world. No. How many web pages have you been to where they don't tell you the password policy and you got to create an account with a new password and it just keeps resetting you while you try to guess what the password policy is? There is evil in this world. Okay, so we're setting it up. We've changed our password. We got to make sure, of course, that we can see this externally, because security doesn't work if you're inside your home. I need to be outside to see what's going over my web camera. And we're in. New password. What is our new password? Applesauce bang. So we now have a functioning web camera for our security. Yes, we're going to show this part in a second. So how do you know we're about to talk about hackers? What's your clue? The black mask is one. We're holding something that has nothing to do with the computer. This is how we know we're about to talk about the hackers. So it starts with reconnaissance and enumeration. Who's heard of Shodan? Right? Who's heard of census? Same thing. Open source intelligence. Almost all the intelligence I need as a hacker for literally any operation in the world, seriously, any operation, not even this simple demo, is available to me open source. Now, I might have to iterate through my intelligence gathering, but everything I need to start is available. You can probably take that statement and tell your security officer that you've completed your counter-espionage training for the year, because that's all they're going to do in 30 to 60 minutes of boredom. You're welcome. 2 seconds. It's available. And Shodan and Census go around and collect, constantly they're trolling the internet and just pulling all the information of everything they see. Anything that responds, they pull. Have you seen those statements where some place is saying like, we've stopped 3.5 million attacks today? The Pentagon? The 3.5 million attacks, 999,980 are just one of these things, just agent-based, pinging the internet, pulling information, fingerprinting. Attack! So it kind of looks like this. I get all of this in the database to query, which I can query by protocol, I can query by firmware version, I can query by location. Lots of very useful information for me to start. The question is the kitten falling or climbing? Oh. So hacker perspective, we're going to try the brute force method. So we're going to try the Mirai style. Is the Mirai style attack going to work on our web camera? Is the Mirai style attack going to work on our web camera? No, why not? Because we changed the password, right? So the defaults aren't going to work. So we're brute forcing this through our script, it doesn't work. Yay, but we've got an end day. So we're just going to launch the end day, which is a proof of concept that's available to us. You got to make it obvious. So end day, boom, done, because this thing hasn't been patched. And of course, it prompts us to change it. So we're in. Now, the best part about this is user changed the password, right? Do I need to like time it so you all say yes at once? Yes, yes. So the user changed the password, which means that I now have access to one of the password combinations they use, because how many times do you use completely different passwords versus derivatives? Right, because the password is also proof that evil is in this world. One of the stupidest ideas ever created that we're all stuck with. Yep, all right, good. Okay. So this is the proof of concept that is available that's out there for our end day. Right there on GitHub. Do you need to be a technical expert to copy-paste something? You said yes, we do?
Base my career on that. You don't have to.
No, he's shaking his head yes. Sir, you might be in the wrong conference. Control C. Don't, it's Control V. Point is, this is available, this is easy. I do not need technical depth to use this. So we now have this ability to, we've seen how easy it is to gather lots of targeting from around the world. We've seen how easy it is for us to enumerate because we can segment that targeting by what we have available to us. Writing a script that just merely consumes those IP addresses and launches code takes no talent either. 20 years ago, we used to call that script kidding, and we would look down on it. It works. It absolutely works. And the thing is, right, I'm not targeting Jeff, because that's one, that's not a challenge. But two, I'm not going to go after a Jeff, right? I'm going after the entire net. Anything that matches the net that I'm trying to troll with is what I'm going for. You are not individually being targeted. Your devices, because they fit a certain profile, is all I care about, and the fact that there are thousands of them, or tens of thousands of them, is the only part that matters to me. Okay, so we're launching our remote exploit. Yeah, we didn't call it control that one. There we go. So we got our connect back. Done. So now what we want to do is, of course, see where we are and see what else we can see. Someone mentioned same VLAN. Question is, what is on that VLAN of interest? This, of course, matters to an enterprise environment just as much as it matters to a consumer environment. Who's aware of the fish tank hack that took over a casino? You heard of this one? There was a fish tank. They used IoT devices to manage it. It just also happened to connect into the interesting part of the casino. Casino board? All right, so we're staging our C2. We'll launch that, we already did that. I guess I didn't need that second video. All right, so here we are trolling the rest of everything we can see. Easy to build a script to do this. We find a window share. Now remember, we have your password because you changed your password. People tend to use derivative passwords. So we're in. What do we got? Oh, yeah, some of these look good. So let's start with the fun part. Yeah, so this is, we've hacked into the Grimm house here. So who lives in the Grimm house? fun, but it doesn't move the needle. Move the needle now. So taking all documents we see, people tend to name documents things like password file, taxes, bank account. Password, thank you. Oh, your tax form. Convenient. This is why you should care. Falling? Who said falling? Are you divorced? So what can I do? First of all, like we said, an attacker can't affect what they can't touch. Firewall is your starting point of being able to control both access as well as stateful connection. Change the default credentials. Mirai is still the common attack that is circulating. Changing the credentials at least will put you above 97%. Hackers are lazy. We go with what works. If you stop making it easy, we'll have to change that. Patches. Yeah, I know. I already said, like, punch that guy in the nose. You're welcome to try afterwards. That was a joke, not a physical threat. My recommendation, once a year, just like where you do your taxes, do the asset inventory of what you have, do the painful going to each manufacturer site to try to figure out if it can be patched and doing that. The other piece then is segregate your VLANs. All of your IoT devices should be on their own VLAN. They should have their own dummy email account. They should have something that has nothing to do with anything to do with who you are and the parts that matter. Where you do your bank account information and your taxes should be on a separate VLAN. It should be a segregated network from where you are doing your other things. Apply that into the enterprise environment and repeat. What's that? Slash 31 networks. Yep. This is why this matters. We are introducing all of these devices into our environment. And by environment, I'm talking about the entire United States of America. There is nothing preventing anybody from providing a network-connected device with no security controls, which we all will plug in. The only thing we need is to find it interesting enough to do so. The concept of herd immunity is where if I inoculate enough cattle in a herd, outbreak is reduced. There's a tipping point where if I inoculate enough, then the probability of outbreak is reduced. There's a tipping point where if it's below enough, outbreak is increased. I can have Fort Knox of cybersecurity sitting here in a sea of insecure devices, and it will make Fort Knox less secure as a result because it adds more surface area. It adds more vectors. This is the problem that we have for the entire country and the entire world, is we are not looking at this from a herd immunity problem. We are looking at it at an individual level. We are all worse off for the approach that we're taking here. Call to action. What can we do? Manufacturer accountability. Accountability is a good place to start. Make those guys paint rocks, break rocks. It works for a private, why can't it work for a company? Manufacturer accountability. There needs to be consequences to the introduction and the application of responsibility. But what about that fly-by-night Chinese company that's going to build something and disappear in 3 months? Kind of hard. But what we can force then is the design for the life cycle. If you're going to sell something in this country, you're responsible for the support through the life cycle. Starting point, vulnerability disclosure. You need a public interface for things that are found by the independent research community or found through operation that somebody can throw it to you, you can receive it, you will triage it, and you will have a period of time to be able to respond and push out patches. You will also consider how do we push out patches. we should not all be guessing how each of you push out patches as a manufacturer. That should be provided to us, particularly when you start thinking at the enterprise and the company level. We're talking in the context of consumers. If you're running a power plant, you have this same problem. They don't make this easy. So there are several of us who are working on this problem. So the ICS Village, the nonprofit that I co-founded, this is a challenge we're working. We just held an event called Hack the Capitol in September, where we brought together policymakers, congressional staffers, several folks from Congress, and think tanks to actually show them equipment and teach them the problem so they can start to learn about it. IoT Security Foundation is another, and then I Am the Cavalry is an independent organization that we partner with that is also trying to advance an understanding at the policymaker level. The point is, we are technical experts here in this room. We are trying to solve the problem with what's tactically in our hands. We also need to change the way the ecosystem is looking at this to make it easier for all of us to make us more secure. Time for swag. Questions? Comments? Pithy remarks? I don't want to run up there. I'm already tired. Just kidding. No, you can start talking while I slowly move to you and make it look funny. Do those actually work? Ah, it's blinking red. It's been exploited.
Okay, so most people, normal people, don't have a smart switch or something that's VLAN capable, and they have no idea how to configure a VLAN. So what do you suggest for that?
Okay. So 2 parts to it. Challenge of expertise. How do I implement a VLAN? 2, a question of technology, the ability to implement a VLAN. I'm not aware of many or any home routers that don't have the ability to segment a VLAN. More, it's a problem of, I think of expertise. How do I do it? That's something I think we could easily, one, I mean, you search for how to do that. There's lots of YouTube videos and Google pieces. It starts with an awareness to want to do it from the average user, but I think the resources are generally available for that. Yeah, that's a great idea. What do you want for swag? That's actually a very good idea. Is Don here? Don, I got your books. Are you here? Good. Don's a good guy. These are good books. I just wanted to pick on him. Yeah, so what he was just saying is we were talking about certain levels of security. Why don't routers automatically have default to prompt the user to put your crap here, put your good stuff here? That is a brilliant idea. I'm stealing it. Oh, I'm sorry. Look, all white guys look the same. What is that? Lockpick set. Oh, lockpick set, yeah. Yes.
What does that matter? But again, thanks.
No, go for it.
The question is, what's the most effective way that you've found to get a manufacturer to respond or to change to a request? Like, for instance, expanding their password policy.
Yeah, so there's no, again, yeah, there's no one answer to that.
Yeah.
This is part of where we have organizations that are trying to apply that pressure at a strategic level. There is no regulatory enforcement. There is no legal consequences. So the best we've got is, and this is where the independent security research community struggles with, hey, I found something. At least it's not like 10 years ago where they would threaten a lawsuit against us for finding something. And that's why we're encouraging vulnerability disclosure so that there's at least a legal interface with some kind of safe harbor for being able to bring those things forward. Safe harbor is the concept that you do not bear liability for finding a vulnerability. This has been the tension with the hacker community and really the greater world writ large is that we were seen as the bad folks. Right? Stop finding the problems. There weren't problems before you found them. So that's really the best we got. Since we're running out of time, you get to pick something. Yeah, LT, what?
Sir, what are your thoughts on the government recently having a new fear of Huawei devices and trying to get rid of all those? That's actually like something to be worried about.
Okay, so should the government be worried about Huawei or Kaspersky or whichever, or Supermicro or let's answer that a little differently. It's getting hot here. We are, we don't have to say at war, but we are being constantly hacked. China's hacking us, Russia's hacking us, Iran is hacking us, North Korea's hacking us. Did you know that Vietnam now has a sizable cyber force in the government? Vietnam. Consumer devices and private industry are the battleground that this is happening. The military is a hard target. The soft underbelly of the United States, which is the #1 economy in the world, is the private industry. And so far, while the national cybersecurity strategy has said we, the government, are going to be more offensive about this, they actually haven't really come up with a protective mechanism for private industry. You're on your own. Contrast this with the conversation I was talking with you guys last night where I was in China last month at the Internet Security Conference. This was great. We had China, we had Russia talking and preaching to me about how they were there to protect internet freedom. It gets better. The Great Firewall is there to make their citizens more secure and safe. Technically, it does. They have a country firewall. We don't have that. I think I'm out of time. Am I out of time? Oh, I've got 1 minute. 1 minute. Lightning question. Manufacturers I recommend to purchase from. I'm not allowed to answer that in any form. Conflict of interest. I apologize. I can't answer that.
So when you're talking, you mentioned like really bad Chinese companies that would stand out, spit out a bunch of bad IoT devices and go under. In a situation like that, where you then later find a vulnerability in those devices, where a coordinated disclosure is not possible, what is the best disclosure path?
There isn't one. My point is that they would be forced to do that before they'd be allowed to sell here. I believe I'm done. Can I want to take a selfie with you guys in the background if that's cool. Wait, wrong way. Yeah, IoT, 1, 2, 3, IoT.